We are live, live. We are live.
Oh,
I
no.
think so.
I gotta check.
It says sending data. We are streaming on YouTube, streaming on Christian Temple's page, and streaming on the Talking Toast page.
Here we go.
I think we did it. No, don't yawn.
I'm sorry.
Don't yawn.
This is
Don't
parenting
do
in
it.
the last week of...
Did it work?
Yep, it's working.
Perfect.
Parenting in the last week of summer. It's this tired. Oh, man. Where did it go?
It's good. It's right there.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to share it.
Well, in the meantime, you have a minute to grab a friend, grab a drink, but don't grab your friend's drink.
That's right. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good night tonight. And we're going to talk about some things. We're going to toast. And yeah, we're going to have a good time. Was it working?
Yeah.
Perfect. Are you working?
No. I'm so tired.
I don't know why the chat's not working.
Oh.
Okay, let's see if I can get the chat to come back up.
Well,
Tools.
until then, everyone should know that women's basketball is back. WNBA came back on from their 6-week break. And the controversy today is that, was it last night that they played Seattle? No, it was Sunday night when we were driving home.
Yeah.
They played Seattle. The Fever played.
The only team that matters
team that exists.
in WNBA for us.
Played the Seattle Storm on Sunday, and there was a player from Seattle at the end of the game. Have you seen this video? That like speed walks over to Caitlin to like bump shoulders with her. Yeah. It's pretty sassy. So there's that. That was
Speed walks.
that was the only thing I could think of talking about while you were doing your thing, whatever that thing was. I don't know. Anyway, welcome
That's what
to
came to mind.
The only thing
right.
that ever comes to mind for me is women's sports.
There you go.
All right, so welcome to Talking Toast. We start every Tuesday night, with the exception of last Tuesday. On Tuesday nights when we're not preaching.
Almost every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday night. We start at 8:28. Sometimes we start at 8:29, but we talk about and pull back the creative process, the curtain on the creative process. I'm just gonna leave. I'm tired. God. We pull back the curtain. Stop laughing at me.
Gird up your loins. Let's do this. This is the gird up your loins text, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Does it actually say gird up your loins?
No, I think that's another text.
Yeah.
I think this.
This one kind of seems like it, though. I can't remember.
Take up the whole armor of God. All right, so before we get to that,
Yeah.
we do this time. We have this time every week to pull back the curtain on the creative process.
Yes.
And talk about things we're thinking about for our sermons on Sunday, kind of connecting them to life and spirituality. And then maybe in the middle of that, you might have a thought or reflection that helps shape our sermon later on as we're writing it.
This is part of our process of making the sermon less monologue and more dialogue. We want to be able to talk about what's going on in the world, what's going on right now, and how it applies to the scripture that we're working with each week. Yeah. And so, it's a lot of fun. Each week we start off Talking Toast by asking, what is sustaining you? What is sustaining you? So if you are on right now, use your keyboard or use your thumbs and let us know what is sustaining you, what is getting you by, what is your 808 beat, what is the undercurrent, what is keeping you awake,
Coffee.
what is the thing that's saving your life right now, as Barbara Brown Taylor would say. And just to let us know if the chat's working.
The chat's working.
Is the chat's working?
Yeah, the chat's working. Nobody said anything.
Okay.
We got
all right.
people in there.
Perfect. Well, let us know what's sustaining you, or what's what's the weather like outside?
How thick of a sweater did you have to put on
Was
today?
it a sweater? I have no idea.
Oh!
No idea of...
What's sustaining you?
What's sustaining you? Okay.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
Chantel.
Yeah.
Today is one of those days. One of those days.
Just one of those days.
Yeah. So...
It's not often I sing Limp Bizkit during the middle of the Dunkin' Toast.
So what's sustaining you?
What's sustaining me? Well, whenever I said, what does it feel like outside? What's the weather? Oh my lordy, that is sustaining me.
You just peeked out the microphone.
I peeked it out, and it was worth every bit of it, because we went outside today, and it was like, oh, it's gonna be fall, and it felt so good. Yeah. And it was just this, I don't know.
Weather.
It's
light sweater weather.
Sweater leather.
Sweater weather. Say that 10 times fast. Sweater weather. Light sweater weather.
And this said sweater leather. I was like,
a leather cardigan.
Leather cardigan.
What if Mr. Rogers put on a leather cardigan?
for his ride on the Harley. Today, kids, we're going to the Harley Davidson factory. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Sonia Scott says 94 in Georgia.
Ooh, I'm sorry, Sonia.
This is that magical time when other places start cooling off and Georgia stays hot.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And probably the bugs are bad, and you know, all the good things.
My parents said great memories. They hosted Sophie while we were away.
Yeah.
We got away for a few days and did great planning. I don't know how in the world, like, we got all that we got done. We planned sermons and talked about these texts for all the way until Pentecost, which is in June of
really
2025.
Through Pentecost, because we got to plan for next summer too.
Exactly.
So we got a grant to do some extra planning, because I'm bivocational, work full-time elsewhere. And so over the weekend we took some time by ourselves and did some planning, and it was awesome. And we were in Clemson, and I'm surprised you didn't say anything about Clemson sustaining you.
Well, I mean, I'm just subtly, sorry, it's on the other side. I'm just subtly...
Look at this beautiful...
Look at the beautiful color. Yeah, that really was life-giving. And yeah, it was hot down there, but the man, looking around at the new women's lacrosse facility and the new gymnastics facility, and I was just
Lily
amazed.
swam in Lake Hartwell.
She did. She tried to swim to Georgia, Sonia, so I'm glad you were there to catch her.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the geography of upstate South Carolina, there's this giant lake, Lake Hartwell, and it some of it is in Georgia and some of it's in South Carolina, but
it's actually part of the reservoir for Atlanta. Yeah,
so it comes right up to Clemson's campus. And we took Lily with us on our planning retreat because she's our spiritual director. And and that was supposed to be a joke, but it wasn't funny. So
in the tradition of Moltmann, she's German. She's sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That was a very niche theology
Sorry.
joke. So we took Lily with us, and so in the evenings we would go to campus and walk around with her. And so one night she went and swam in the lake, and I thought we were not going to get her back. Yeah. She just kept going.
Yep. Julia said that communion bread was sustenance. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Chantel called us nerds. So
we are.
Perfect.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yes, Julia, you and Sophie have to commiserate on your love of the communion bread, because every week after worship, they give us the communion bread, because I guess we touch it.
We touched it, yeah.
And so every week after worship, Sophie comes up like it's her payment for behaving in worship to get the extra communion bread. Yep. And she'll eat it all before we get to lunch.
Yeah. I'd love to see Julia and Sophie sitting on the steps of the church chomping on communion bread sometime. That would be life-giving to me.
That's a great image. That is a great
Yep.
image.
All right. Have you said what's sustaining you?
I have not.
Okay. What's sustaining
Nothing.
you? You and Chantel?
No.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. No. No. What is sustaining me? I am really just loving this weather, and yeah, I don't know.
It's all right.
I don't know
It's
what's
okay.
sustaining me.
You're pretty tired.
I'm tired.
You normally on a long trip like that, which was 8 hours, just driving part was 8 hours, you would fall asleep for about 5 out of the 8 hours.
Yeah.
On the way back, you did not.
That's what's sustaining me. I read the entire way back. No, yeah, that's exactly what you're exactly right. In fact, so, yeah, that doesn't happen much.
Clutch my pearls.
So some of you may be reading along with our congregation. We're doing summer book clubs, and this coming Thursday, 2 days from now, we're hosting at our house the last summer book club discussion, and anybody is welcome to come if you'd like to. But we read this third book was The Water is Wide by Pat Conroy, and I had never read it. So anyway, so I started reading it at the beginning of the trip, and John was like, while we were at our little tiny house on our planning retreat, John was like, do you think you're going to be able to finish that? I was like, hold my books. So on the way back, I got sucked into it, and I swear I didn't put it down.
I know. He's a good writer.
To the point where it started getting dark, because we didn't get home until like midnight. It started getting dark, and we were in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, and so we went into a truck stop so I could get a headlamp so I could continue reading.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's a great story. So if anybody, even if you can't get here to the Thursday night book discussion, it's worth reading, especially if you're living in the Baltimore area or Sonia in the Low Country. Or the Coastal Empire, where there's a history of segregation, where there's history of racial, all kinds of racial injustices, and anyway, so it's just a fascinating story of Pat Conroy, true story of him going to Daufuskie Island, Sonia. So it's not too far from you. Mm-hmm. To teach for a year and some change.
Yep. And that truck stop was awesome, and I feel like we need to give a plug for that truck stop on 81. What town is that? Because we've stopped at that thing, and it's like a mall right beside the interstate.
We've stopped like 4 times.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
It's awesome.
It's like an hour from... Not an hour. It's like 30 minutes from Harrisonburg, south of Harrisonburg on 81.
Okay.
Kind of close to Stanton, Virginia, or if you're just reading the signs and have never talked to anyone from Virginia, it's spelled Staunton. But Virginians have strange ways of pronouncing things.
That's right.
So,
yeah,
there's that.
So this week, I'm glad you are sustained. This week, we are not hosting, but one of the focus points of worship is back to school. Starting this new routine and beginning. Yes, and I know there are plenty of parents out there like,
We were talking about today in
them.
our worship planning, we were talking about what should the song, the postlude be, which is the last song that is played.
Like the choral benediction.
That is played as people are walking out of the worship service. And I'm still buckling down. It needs to be, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the most wonderful time.
Here.
Just kidding. But not really.
But it's going to be great because we're doing This Little Light of Mine, and it'll be jazzy, and I'm really excited about
fun.
that. That's a good song for kids and adults alike.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yes, it is. It is a wonderful time of the year. Anyway, so our text this Sunday is Ephesians 6:10 through 20. Ephesians 6:10 through 20. And this is, we're going back to Ephesians, so This is Deutero-Pauline, meaning that we don't think Paul wrote this, but somebody wrote it in the tradition of Paul, or in the school of Paul, or was friends with Paul, that kind of thing, or wrote it for Paul, even.
Ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter. And so, in this text, it's a pretty famous one. In fact, I've been going back and forth on whether to share this or not, but I got a graduation gift that was a picture with this text on it, and I'm not
I'm sorry, Julia.
I don't know what Julia was talking to about.
So instead of being an a-hole, just like an a-hole.
Which,
so since Paul's kind of a jerk.
oh yeah.
So not fully Paul.
Yeah.
Not fully a jerk. just like a jerk.
Sorry. I didn't know. We're texting. The comments are a little behind. So I was like, what did I say? Sorry. Yes, Paul is that, Julia. And where was I going?
You were talking about the graduation gift you got.
Yeah, this graduation gift had this text on it. Well-meaning person. And I'm very thankful for that person's influence in my life. And it was a you're going out into the world graduation gift, and it was you need to put on the breastplate of righteousness, put the word, your sword on, which is the word of God. You need to, and it's basically gird up your loins. It's basically like you're going out to fight evil in this. And like I said, I'm very thankful for this person's influence in my life. I think very differently now about this text, and I think why don't you start off with this, because your title, you should share your title and what you're thinking with that, because I think it goes around.
So all of this language about putting things on, putting on the breastplate of righteousness, the sword of whatever, the spirit, I don't know.
The armor of God.
The armor of God. Putting on this armor of God.
So that you'll be able to stand up against the wiles of the devil. The devil.
So all of this putting on this protection, it reminds me of what some people do in the locker room. And there are others who... The idea of the locker room is a fascinating idea to me, and I'm wondering about whether you're grinning.
I'm thinking I should do the devil speech on Sunday.
You should do the devil speech on Sunday. So I'm wondering whether the church could be seen as the locker room for the kingdom, meaning I've spent a lot of time in locker rooms, and the locker room is the place you go not only to get ready, like I was in soccer locker rooms, so put on your shin guards, put on your socks, put on your gloves, put on your jerseys, so that you're in the right mindset to go out into the game. We used to listen to a lot of very loud music in the locker room. We used to dance, we would cut up, and then we would get really serious and like prepare our minds to go out into the game.
On the tennis team, we used to do the Lord's Prayer. And then we would go out and hit the green fuzzy ball.
So anyway,
jacked us up.
So I'm wondering if there are some similarities between what happens at church and what happens in a locker room. Now, I want to be really careful with that, because it's not like we're going off to war. And this is a very militaristic text. You were putting on a breastplate, which is something a warrior would wear. And it's hard because early Christianity was so known as being pacifist. In fact, at this time period, around the time of Paul, there was kind of a general agreement that people who were in the military who made their living fighting could not be baptized because they didn't know what a life of peace really was.
And this is interesting because when we have these letters, a lot of these letters written to these early churches are figuring out these different disagreements.
Right.
Because it didn't just go there. It was also, well, was this person circumcised, of Jewish background? No. Well, then they're a Gentile, and can they join? And then,
right.
And so there's all these different things that are
right.
like insider, outsider.
Right. So I don't want us to get too caught up in the militaristic stuff.
Yes.
Because I think, first of all, we're going to tread in dangerous territory if we start talking about, like, oh, we Christians need to be put on all of our protection and all of our armor before we go out into that evil world. Because then we're not going to appreciate the people that we're with, the places that we encounter, and the sense of God that is everywhere in our world.
It's kind of hard to love your neighbor whenever you approach your neighbor in this fashion.
Right. In the fashion of
a militaristic fashion.
Militaristic, yeah. So I'm wondering if we can kind of shift from the militaristic idea. Now, all of the things that they're putting on in this text, pull the text up again if you don't mind. The breastplate of righteousness, the
whole armor of God,
lace up your sandals. So breastplate of righteousness, belt your waist with truth.
The shield of faith. Which you'll be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. This is a great text.
So, but it's interesting because all of those are protective. They're not like, and I take a little comfort in that they are protective and not, they're not attacking. There is the sword.
Yeah, the sword of the Spirit.
The sword of the Spirit.
Which is the Word of God.
Yeah. So we got to break down some of that militaristic stuff. But I think it's important to think about what happens at church, what happens in community, in a community where you are loved and accepted for who you are, is that you are prepared to encounter all that life throws at us. It is in that community of the church, of belovedness, of acceptance, of absolute comfort, that we are then able to go out into the world where we're going to have bad days, where our back's going to hurt, and our kid's going to cry, and we're gonna have bad days, but we know we have that community in that locker room to come back to and find comfort and challenge. And after we lose a game, we come in and we complain a little bit and then we say, all right, well, let's watch film and let's see what we need to do differently next time. And we walk through those changes together.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because whenever I hear locker room, I don't always think about the positive side of the locker room.
Right. And
people talk like locker room talk,
yep.
That kind of thing.
I was immediately thinking of like the way the locker room talk came up in political discourse. But maybe we can do some redeeming of the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that, I think that goes along well. I'll be focusing on a misquote of, or a quote attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. We don't think he really said this, but this sounds like something he would say. It's
kind of like, we don't think Paul actually wrote this,
right.
But it sounds like something he would write.
Exactly, yeah. Preach the gospel and when necessary use words. And I love that quote and have always loved that quote. Preach the gospel and when necessary use words. And I think Paul would learn a lot from that in this.
Paul is particularly wordy.
Yeah, and I think this is I think that's a helpful way. Like if we're going into the world, which I think that's been something that you and I have tried our best to do in our ministry, is to take apart this, the world is this and the world's that and the world is negative, negative. And no, this is the same world that God created, right? So there's got to be some good redeeming things. Maybe if they don't agree with all of us, like that can be a good thing too. That's a diversity of opinions. So anyway, I think going into God's good world with a mindset of the gospel is how I live it out, I think is a different mindset than girding up your loins because everything's going to be coming against you in an evil way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you there's this great book called Humankind, and
Walter Bregman.
Bregman. Yeah. So it talks about just the way we approach the world and how what we think about the world is what we're going to see.
Yeah.
So if you think you've got to gird up your loins and put on your breastplate of righteousness and have your shield to protect you from the arrows that are coming at you from the devil, if you think that's what you're going to see. And that's okay. And if you think that the God who created you is also the God who created this beautiful world we live in, and cool autumn breezes and soft grass to lay in, and your neighbors who are just lovely human beings, and your neighbors who maybe are not as lovely of human beings, but God still created them. If you have that approach, you're going into the world in a different way, and you're going into a world where you're going to see the beauty. And so you're going to find what you say. You're going to find what you see. And it makes me think of that part in The Water is Wide, where at the end of the book, and it's a memoir, so it's not like I'm like ruining the ending. At the end of the book, when Pat Conroy is working on preparing for his second year teaching on this island of African Americans who the education system had like totally disinvested from this island and the public education that was happening there. So he says he spends his whole first year trying to help them see that there's a window, see the larger world away from the island. And he realizes he needed to help them in his second year see the beauty that is before them on the island.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of our quest. That's our calling, is to preach the gospel and when necessary use words and find those places in the world that are beautiful representations of places and people that are beautiful representations of our Creator.
Absolutely. Deanna said hi and happy anniversary from Raleigh. Thank you, Deanna. It's funny, we actually did tomorrow is the anniversary, I guess the 11th anniversary of our when we signed the papers, because we did that months before
our courthouse wedding.
Yeah, we had our courthouse time, which is tomorrow.
One day we'll tell y'all about that story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
It wasn't actually in a courthouse.
And then our anniversary, the one we celebrate, that was just signing papers. That wasn't that big of a deal. Our wedding was in December, December 21st. But tomorrow is my sister's birthday.
Yeah, it is.
And I know she's watching right now.
No, she's not.
So tell her happy birthday. I actually remembered ahead of time. And thank you, Deanna, for that. But I'm excited about this Sunday, and I've got all kinds of different. I'm really glad you brought up Walter Bregman. I think that might be something that is a good illustration that'll go along. There's a few different. That book is just chock full of great illustrations.
Oh man, it's such a good book. If anybody needs a recommendation for a good read,
for something that is uplifting,
it is uplifting and it's hopeful. There's there's one story of how
Don't.
Okay.
Don't.
I'm not going to ruin it for you.
Yeah, because you might be doing the illustration that I'm going to use.
Okay, go read it. Go read it.
Well, friends, this has been a lot of fun tonight. Thank you for joining in with us, and thank you for being a part of Talking Toast and this little bit of dialogue. This is good. We are doing Bible stories and Veggie Tales. How that correlates with our world this next ministry year should be really fun. Listen, I'm a Veggie Tales fan. Katie, not so much, but I am a Veggie Tales fan, and I love it. And Deanna, I want to hear your favorite songs by the end of all of this, because mine is "Where Is My Hairbrush?" Yes,
We may have a sermon series on Bluey coming up.
yes.
So,
We do have a sermon series on Bluey.
just a
coming up.
couple
It's
weeks.
gonna be fun.
Yeah. Bluey is like this generation's Veggie Tales without the fundamentalism
But the two people who made Veggie Tales weren't fundamentalists.
at the time.
They're still not. You've read something along the way that is wrong about these people. Because they're not. Anyway, we'll talk
Challenge
about that another
accepted.
time. Yes, we're going to go back and look. Anyway, well, friends, this has been a lot of fun. We've done talking. We need to do some toasting. Will you start us?
Yeah. Go, friends, from this place, and remember that there is a time to prepare, there is a time to rest, there is a time to get ready and to reflect. And wherever you do that, may that time be a blessing for you.
And may you find that your life is a good sermon, and whether it has words or not. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, friends.
Cheers, everybody.
We will see you next week. We'll be back on doing this regularly for a while. I can't think of when there's going to be another time. Maybe in December, November, somewhere in there.
September 7th.
I don't know. But tomorrow night, if anybody is in the Maryland area, we'll see you at the Tedeschi Trucks concert. We're
Will
really
we?
excited
Will we
about
see
that.
other people there?
Yes, maybe.
Okay.
Who knows?
We're going on a
another
date
person.
tomorrow
We're
night.
going on a date. And, yeah, anyway. Well, good night, everybody. And,